Welcome, everyone. This is Glenda Dawson, and I have LD here with me, and you're watching Glenda's Dragon's Den. And Glenda's Dragon's Den can be found at the Glenda's Magical Creations on Conscious Awakening Network, on Paris Post Network Central, YouTube, Facebook, Roku, whole bunch of places. And tonight we have a great guest, our friend, and returning.
He's back.
He's back. He's back actually for the third time. He was here with us the first time that we had Glenda's Dragons Den way back in 2019, and now he's joining us for the third time.
He's a glutton for punishment.
He's a glutton for punishment. Yes, yes. That's what every single person in the audience.
Three strikes and you're in. You know?
That's the smell.
So, welcome, Chip Reichenthal. How are you?
Thank you. I'm awesome, and I'm delighted to be back with you both. And I love this show, and I just love this atmosphere, and I love being around you guys. And it's nice not only to be a veteran, but like a first timer and a veteran.
I know.
Yeah. Just
You
see
were
if
our
you can
first
beat
show?
that.
Yeah, you were our very first show. So.
Yeah. And that's a huge honor to this day. Still a huge honor.
It's
And,
great having you. Great having you. Always.
It's great to be back. Yeah.
We hope we've made it worth your while.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. This is. I mean, I spent nearly 2 years in what we call radio silence. Just really concentrating on family for a while, and this was the only time that I came out to say hi to anybody. And really, Glenda and Larry were the two people that I kept in contact with throughout this whole radio silence thing.
Whether you wanted to or not.
Well, I did want to, and I'm glad for it. It was probably the best decision that I made in those 2 years, and I made a lot of good decisions in those 2 years. But it's kind of a new perspective these days. Kind of found my mojo, and I had a lot of help in that, and the majority of it came from the two people that I'm with today. But kind of feeling my strength in it, and it's because you know I got a little sick, and suddenly it was my mortality that I was concerned about, and that kind of changed the game a little bit. And so yeah, it's living better, and that's the thing. And
Well, we're grateful you've allowed us to be a part of that.
well, I'm extremely grateful that you guys have helped, and helped in a way that nobody else on earth I could. And I don't want to sound like I'm exaggerating, because it's true, and it's fascinating, and because a lot of people haven't shared that experience. They go, okay, well, whatever.
Well, I just want to make it clear, because Glenda's humble, and it's not just on Earth. Glenda doesn't work alone. Glenda
Yeah.
doesn't just work terrestrial. So
No, yeah, that's
you guys have
yeah.
been fortunate that she's been able to pull in teams and.
Oh, amazing teams, and yeah, and look, I come from that 5D world, So I'm one of the few people that can back you up on that, like 1,000%.
Well, it's
Because
just, a lot of people think healer as far as no. Healing is just a conduit. And so, whenever someone says, the only person on earth or the only, well, but we're just conduits. That's all we ever claim to be. It's all we can
Hmm.
ever claim to be, and we couldn't do it without you.
Well, yeah, that's true too, and that's, I mean, that's exactly how I feel when I do my practices.
Mm-hmm.
Do tarot readings. I've been doing tarot readings for over 30 years now. But I'm just interpreting what the cards are saying, and the cards and my spirit guides and all of the 5D kind of help
Mm-hmm.
that we have going through it is because it's really about the person that comes to see you. It's not about you. It's not about you being special and gifted and talented and all these things, even though we are. It's about the message,
Mm-hmm.
and
Well, a
yeah,
lot of people like to say it is what it is, and what I always say, it's not what it is; it's what you make of it.
yeah, and that is very very true. And I remember it came up a little while ago. For some reason, my I wrote a book in 2014 uh, called "Even the Dead Won't Tell You the Truth."
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of like it's painting a first person perspective of a spirit medium, somebody that talks uh, to the dead. And but if I was going to do a nonfiction about my personal experiences, my mother would have bought it, and that's about it, and it's been done and done and overdone. So even when well-known mediums write a nonfiction book about a first-person perspective, it's kind of meh, been there, done that.
Mm-hmm.
So instead, I took my experiences and painted a character, a central character in a murder mystery novel who's been unwittingly thrown into a murder mystery and in a very unusual circumstance. The central character's best friend is in jail
Mm-hmm.
for the murder of his high school sweetheart, and they were the a big couple on campus. I mean, the most popular guy, the most popular girl, and they were couples, and they never really did anything to abuse that. They were
Mm-hmm.
nice to everybody. They never used their power against people.
So it's a work of fiction, then.
So it's a work of fiction. Yeah,
Yeah, because
absolutely.
real people don't do that, but not
Right.
in my experience. But
Right.
except for
Yeah.
us,
Well, and
but we're a
and
work of fiction too.
and
I'm
I
sorry, friction. We're a work of friction.
work of friction.
Oh, I knew that was coming.
It's still energy though, and that's a good thing. uh,
Ah, that's the rub.
Don't encourage him, Chip. Don't
that's the rub.
encourage him.
Uh, but the best friend who was never really into the talking to the dead kind of stuff, and yet we were best friends anyway in the book. And,
Mm-hmm.
suddenly, he's in a very precarious position because, they're looking at him for this murder and they're looking at him hard, and it does not look good for him at all. So,
Mm-hmm.
in his desperation, he asked our central character to communicate with the murder victim
Mm-hmm.
to get some alibi evidence, to get him out of jail. Um, and so the character does have a conversation. Finally, it takes a while for him to get in touch with this victim, but once he does, the conversation goes a little bit awry. And he's thinking either his best friend actually did the murder or she's lying.
Mm-hmm.
And it, he has to ponder to what extent the dead could lie to us when we're in contact and communication with them. And I mean, if they're going to lie, is it a white lie? Is it the kind of lie that will get somebody thrown in jail for the rest of their lives? You know, because they were scorned in a
Mhm.
relationship, even though it wasn't actually didn't actually happen. You know, I mean, if there's going to be deceit, what kind of deceit is it going to be?
Mhm.
And so that's part of it. So it's a murder mystery. It's a page turner. We keep the suspense going to the very end. It's kind of a short read. It's about 4.5 hours, you know, but it again, we keep the suspense up, and at the same time, you learn a first-person perspective of a spirit medium, and it paints a better light of people with psychic ability, people that talk to the dead, people that are more spiritual than religious.
Mhm.
Um, people that are doing things that some people think they should be going to hell for, or they're evil themselves, or breaking all sorts of dogmatic laws, and what it really is pointing out that uh, if you have an opportunity to communicate with spirit, I'll say spirit rather than dead people. It's a gift, It's one of the greatest kinds of communications you can have because it's just not normal. Science hasn't even caught up with it yet, you know, and and but you get what you give, So if you walk into a situation like most people who watch these TV shows and they see all the scary stuff, and they think they're going to be scared to death, they'll probably end up getting scared to death because that's what they expect, and that's the kind of thing they give. They walk through this pocket of energy that where something feels off, and they say, "Ooh, there's something bad here,"
Yeah.
and it already breaks the chain of any kind of communication that's positive, that's give and take.
Mhm.
They've already painted this opportunity evil.
Mhm.
So what they're going to get is what they expect, which is either nothing, which is disappointing to them, or scared to death, which is what they asked for in the first place.
And you would think that people that do this work understand that, and yet most of the groups that I'm aware of
And me too.
will go in and do a history before the investigation.
Sure.
And if
Well,
you do a history before the investigation, guess what? You're going to be looking consciously or subconsciously for that information. So, one of the things about the investigations I ran is nobody knew anything going in except what they absolutely had to know to
right.
stay safe,
Yep.
and nobody was allowed to talk to each other during the investigation. They were to take
Wow.
their own notes,
Wow. I like that. Yeah.
okay? Because again, if I see something and I say, "Did you just see that?" and I say what it is, now you're defining it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's really no reason for that.
Well, it's
You're in there
exactly.
to investigate. Go in there and get your perspective,
Mm-hmm.
and then let's see where the perspectives align.
Yep. And even then, with the perspective, and I think that because 90% probably of the paranormal teams that you all have worked with and I've worked with, and that, I mean, as a collective, we've all worked with,
Mhm.
is because their first experience, if they had one, was something that scared them. They heard their name called and nobody was there, or something grabbed their leg and when they were kids and scared the crap out of them, or somebody they know and love. So they're expecting this fear element. Where I mean, I came into it because my best friend through all of childhood came to me at the moment of his death,
Mhm.
asked me for my blessing because he wanted to die. He was brain dead. He was a vegetable,
Right.
and he's like, "Get me out of this," or permit me, you know. And boy, I didn't anticipate that. I didn't anticipate seeing him, or speaking with him either. I mean, he was in Florida when this happened. He was
Well,
brain
and
dead
you
for
were very
weeks.
young.
And yeah, well, yeah, I was 20 at the time. It was just a couple of days before my 21st birthday,
Mhm.
and I had known for a couple of weeks that my best buddy is brain dead, and that was my first experience with the loss of someone close, and I consider myself very fortunate to be almost 21 until that happened. But still, I mean, he wasn't dead, so do you grieve him? I mean, what are the rules? And there are
And
no
just to be
rules.
clear, Chip, you knew through earthly means. You didn't know through intuitive means at that point in your life.
Yeah, yeah. No, no, we had, no foresight. We don't think ahead. You don't think it abstract. It's just, I mean, we're kids. I didn't realize at the time that this was the first soulmate in my life. That and his death basically changed my life and changed it for the better. It really made my life, um, and that sounds really weird to say. But the
Well,
thing is,
because
at the
you made
time,
your life, Chip. This was a catalytic experience, but you're the one who chose this direction and chose to go with it and chose to honor
well,
it.
it's because Larry, at the time, I couldn't tell anybody. I couldn't tell. My mother comes out of the house 10 minutes after this happened. It was like 3 in the morning. I've known my mother all my life. She's never been awake at 3 in the morning, and here she is coming out of the house way back to this swing set that I was on to process all this. How to feel and how to think about this, and after this communication happened, she came out and she said that that his my buddy's parents did the unthinkable. They flew all the way across the country to unplug their son, but they didn't know for almost 20 years. They didn't know that they gave him the one thing he wanted more than anything else. I think that would have relieved their grief to
Mhm.
such an extent. But then again, they were uh, um, very deep in their religious belief, um, very deep in their faith, and that information would not have been accepted. Would not have been accepted. They even told me when I finally, almost 2 decades later, told them, that I saw him
Mhm.
as you were watching him unplug. I saw him. He was with me, asking for my blessing to let him die. He said, "You gave him exactly what he wanted." And they told me that I made the right move in not bringing that up for almost 20 years. It might have even been a little early at the time that I actually did tell them. But I couldn't tell my mother. I couldn't tell anybody in the neighborhood that also knew him. Any of his friends, any of my friends, school counselors, I mean, religious leaders. There was nobody that you could talk to. Nobody. Because if you did, you'd have a freak label for like life. This was in 1979, and this was years before the show. That's why I look at people. My personal mentor, Lloyd Auerbach. He was such a hero of mine because throughout the 80s and the 90s, he's the only guy. He's the only guy out there as a paranormal investigator, and he and he's doing the science and the parapsychology and the physics, and he's bringing all these MacGyver-esque things to these castles, and he's doing it for Jerry Springer and Oprah Winfrey, and I mean all these talk shows where people are basically airing out their dirty laundry. Yeah, I mean, he's the only guy out there doing this, and uh, and he was getting crap for it. You know, I,
Well, I'll tell you, I don't know if I mentioned this to you before. I went to high school with James Van Praagh.
did you really? I know you
Not
never
only
told me
did I
that.
go to high school with James Van Praagh, we were in plays together.
Oh my God! Oh, I
Yeah,
see. I
and
can picture that. That
there's
I
a
can.
shot of us in my high school yearbook, the two of us on stage together.
Oh my God!
And but even then, he was hard pressed to find people he could talk to about it, and I feel
Oh
very
sure.
honored that he came to me and shared some of what he was experiencing with me. And but yeah, I mean, back then.
See, there's a character in my book that is basically you. You know, the one person that I could talk to, after this happened, and in the book, you know, the
Well,
I
you're not the
add
first
this.
person to say I'm a character.
That's true. Uh, but I do add in the story of my best friend coming to me at the moment of his death. But in the book, we were in middle school when it happened, and that's what started me on this path to mediumship, and that's not how it happened in my life. But the story and some of the information was changed to kind of fit into the plot and make it more of an interesting aside to this murder mystery. But it also paints, the meaning of life, the meaning of death, and all sorts of philosophical things. But for years, I was out there on my own doing this. And if you run into psychics, and back in that time in the 80s and 90s, uh, th- usually it was their uniform that was more psychic than they were. They'd have bell books and candles and the Karnak the Great hats and all this stuff, and they did something that we call cold reading, which is basically a magician's trick, to try to get some. I see someone with an M or a J.
Right.
Could that Maria? Yes, Maria, that's it. And she has tomato sauce. No, that was my brother Maria. Oh, he has tomato sauce. I mean, that kind of thing. But then there were real psychics who had, who were telepathic or who were psychokinetic or real mediums, and it became kind of an underground thing because they couldn't talk about it out loud either. I think the example to be made it would be Amy Allen from the Dead Files, because Amy Allen thought that everybody else could see dead people too. She didn't know that it was any different than anything else, and yeah, all of a sudden, all her friends are, well, I gotta go, and then they just disappeared and disappeared forever, and then they started antagonizing her, and she had a very, I mean, I couldn't have handled it myself, but at the same time, that's why I respect her and I respect her work. uh, I'm personally in this to represent love and kindness, and that they do exist in these dark, dark worlds, because somebody has to be a voice for it, and because like Larry was saying, 90% of the paranormal teams are, yep, it's evil and this is the sin and, shadow people and demons and they're going to throw you downstairs and all this stuff. It is going on.
Well,
But
not only is it going on, Chip, but you've got major producers grabbing people that have a fair amount of validity and
Oh, sure. And
respectability.
saying, listen, drop the validity. Just say that this happened
And
to you.
here's $1 million.
Run, make it look like you're running for your lives, or
Yeah.
we'll get somebody else to tell their story. That does happen. But
So, but that
they
just
have to
shows you how
sell.
powerful the truth is, because you have people trying to maintain their illusion of control, throwing money at it to discredit it.
But also there, look, I mean, people tune into the news all the time, and news is not what it used to be. Now they're not telling you what happened during the day, they're telling you how you should feel about what happened during the day. But back at the time when they were just reporting what happened without throwing anybody's opinion in there or trying to bend yours into theirs, um, you still, I mean, you still, when they were running feel good stories about heroes and people that did kind things and safety, people would get bored, But if there's blood involved or violence or that sort of thing, then they stay in it because their lives suck. So if they can see somebody have it more sucky than theirs, they tune into that.
Well, it's not just that, Chip. Unfortunately, it's more sinister than that, because people saw the power of propaganda back in the 30s, and the
Well, it's
FCC
way before the
Fairness
30s.
Act,
It goes
the
back to
FCC
ancient
Fairness
Egypt,
Act was
actually.
allowed to expire so that the news is no longer the news.
Yeah. And if it bleeds, it leads. I mean, I was in the news for, I started doing radio in the 80s. And, I had my announcer gigs, you play the music and you talk about the time of day and how great the town is and blah, blah, blah. But there were also news gigs I had, and it was kind of like sales gigs that I had, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I know excellent salespeople, but they really have to kind of leave their soul at home if they want to succeed in sales because they have to kind of do soulless type of things in order to succeed. They have to go against even their own particular moral compass, in order to succeed. And I wasn't willing to do that. I tried doing it with enthusiasm and making enthusiasm contagious
Mm-hmm.
and looking for listening to them, listening to the customer because the customer is a person. Every person is a story. And if you listen to their story,
Mm-hmm.
you can identify with, how they see the world. And you can see the world like they see the world. I mean, kind of be in their shoes and point out why that car is so great or why that outfit, is really them. If they want to try something, to go out to the clubs and shine or be different, And even if it's not something that's particularly your style, this is why it'll work, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, the way that your body is. These clothes are designed for that. So it kind of highlights your profile, but it also makes you look taller and it makes you look, more masculine, and you don't have to do a thing except put the clothes on.
Well, before we go and have people tar and feather Harold Hill rather, uh, sales. The first rule of sales is you sell yourself. You don't sell a product, you sell yourself. And then if the people buy you, they'll buy the product you're selling. But it's a question of what product you sell. And there are plenty of salespeople out there that sell a quality product, even today.
Yeah.
So I can't say salespeople sell their soul. Certainly, there are people that are con artists that sell their soul, and but there are plenty of honest salespeople out there, and I just with someone
Well,
that
my father
started
was
as an
one.
18-year-old in sales.
My father was a nice guy who finished first, and that's he's my ultimate hero. But that's what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to sell kindness.
Right.
I'm trying to bring it into an industry that's 90% fear oriented,
Mhm.
and somebody has to do it because I do know what it's like to be in contact with what people would consider ghosts or
Mhm.
a spirit. The main difference is, one is crossed over into the light, so to speak. They've accepted their deaths. They know they're dead.
Right.
And then they're resting in peace, and it's their choice to
But
come
again,
talk to you or appear to
you
a
don't
client.
sell kindness, Chip. You sell Chip. And the reason people tune into Chip, even after a 2 year absence, is because Chip is Chip and they want to hear what Chip has to say. And the fact that Chip comes from this place of kindness is, a choice Chip has made. And, the fact that you work in the light ultimately is going to provide you with opportunities that you might not have had did you not work in the light. But
Very true.
you can't sell kindness. You sell Chip.
Yeah, well, it's it, when I was in the hospital,
Mhm.
uh, this doctor, they come and ask you questions, and they ask you the same questions like every 20 minutes. Date of birth. What's your name? What's your full name? What year is it? I mean that kind of thing. And it's like, come on, man, the drugs aren't that good. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But anyway, and randomly, one of these attendants says, after they asked me my name, she says, "Who are you?" And I said, "I am a representative of kindness." And she goes, "Oh my God, I love that answer." And she seemed to check up on me more than most of the other attendants. you know, after that. But it's,
Before we, continue with the sales people and all that other stuff, when did you finally decided to, so to speak, come out and really start telling people what you were seeing, what you were feeling, that you can talk to spirits? You're really out into the open. Did you start with only like your wife, or did you start with your wife and then you branched out to friends and all that, which eventually led you to being radio host, DJ, and
wow,
all that
that's,
other stuff?
yeah, no, great question. And it was, I think around 2007,
Hmm.
maybe. I met this guy, John Tobin, his name is. He had a paranormal team called Glory Haunt Hounds. And it was an ad that I saw somewhere that I answered. You know, you go on these job things, and yeah, one of the last things you ever expect to see is that, and so yeah, so I shared with him everything that I had learned up until that point, which was a lot of stuff, but I still couldn't talk about
Right.
it. You still couldn't. I told him the story about how my best friend came to me at the moment of death, and it started me on this journey. And you get to know the good psychics from the bad psychics because they're the only other ones talking about stuff like this, and you get to know people who are paranormalists and ghost hunters, and there were certain things back at that time. There was a code of honor for a ghost hunter, and we didn't
Hmm.
call them ghost hunters back then either.
Hmm.
It was paranormal investigators, because to me, ghost kind of cheapens the person in spirit.
And
It,
they're
it
not all ghosts.
creates this kind of separative barrier. There's that's a fear thing, that's a sinful thing, that's a bad thing. you know. But if you're trying to find out why a piece of furniture moved across a room on its own, and when you see something like that happen, you know, it changes the way you see the world for the rest of
Mhm.
your life. You know, when you see stuff move across the room on its own, on cue even,
Mhm.
you know, it it just changes to okay, that's not what science is saying. You know,
Right.
even to this day, uh, you know, when your best friend comes to you and asks you if it's okay for him to die, you know, nobody said that. So what death was about, you know,
Right.
nobody, and you, to the extent that you couldn't even volunteer it as information, because you'd lose all your credibility,
Exactly.
and why the hell is that? But I had to have that how and why. And 44 years later, I still have to have that how and why. But I've seen so many things that include what you don't expect to include:
Mhm.
compassion, benevolence, love, kindness, you know, healing. Uh, there's actually this thing of healing. I had uh, a friend, one of my old network bosses, Michael Vera,
Mhm.
wrote a book about an experience he had, and he was working on landscaping, and he was staying at this house that was it had burned down, but the half of it was like livable, so you know he
Mhm.
could stay there. And he, even though he has never considered himself psychic, or doesn't really even, you know, at the time wasn't even into anything like that,
Mhm.
um, sensed uh, this guy and his daughter. Uh, uh, and here's the story behind that. And this is probably one of the best learning tools ever. What happened was the father knocked a candle down by accident, and it was in an area that I got the carpet, but the carpet was like really flammable, you know, polyester with whatever, and just
Mhm.
boom, went up, and this fire spread so quickly that their avenue for escape was already blocked,
Mm.
and he basically had to just watch his wife and daughter die.
Mm.
His daughter, though, you know, kids see the world in a different way. You know,
Mhm.
everything's magical, and including death. You know, um, his daughter's there, and he made it his mission in the afterlife to watch over her.
Mm.
Okay, but there's also a part of it where there's an instantaneous thing. They don't actually know that they're dead. I think they probably assume it because nobody's seen them. But they're not thinking about being seen. He's thinking about watching over her. And whatever she does is fine, you know, but they're not thinking out loud: are we alive? Are we dead? You know, it's kind of a thing that's known but not known. They don't really know. And all of a
Mhm.
sudden, here comes Michael Vera, who says something to the girl because he senses her. Is there a little girl here? Oh, you sound, you know, uh, because if you are, I bet you'd be fun to know in life, or something like that, you know. And then he broke away because again, he's not psychic. He doesn't understand that there actually is the spirit of a girl there, an earthbound spirit of a girl, like
Right.
ghost of a girl there. And the father goes nuts, and he goes, "Oh my God, you can see us? You know that we're here? Hey, come back, come back. What are you doing? What are you doing? Tell me how we can get out of here. You know, what can we do? What can we do?" And because he's completely disconnected from the conversation, like they do on the TV shows, which drives me crazy, they start moving things around the room, you know? And the first thing that comes to mind to this living non psychic person is evil. Evil in this house. No, this is a guy who's desperate. He's watching over really in essence, the love of his life, his daughter, to protect her, and he
Mm-hmm.
has an opportunity to find a way out of this or find out something more than what they've known, which is just existing in that room for eons and eons of time. And so that wasn't malice, that wasn't evil.
Mm-hmm.
That's a desperation that most people will never even think about, let alone believe in or have to exist through. And even harder when you have to be dead in order for it to happen, you know. And we learned a lot of times, and I came across a lot of the earthbound spirits as opposed to the crossed over ones that
Mm-hmm.
didn't know they were dead. They had instant heart attacks, one bad beat and they're done. Um, they were murdered, but instantly, you know,
Mm-hmm.
or accidental overdose kind of death,
Right.
where they're still dreaming, really, and they don't know if there's a difference. There's groups of people or families who have all died together, like in a house fire where the whole family's asleep,
Right.
but they died from smoke inhalation before the fire got to them. So, you know, they wake up in a whole new existence, but
Mm-hmm.
don't know it's new, and they can't understand why the neighbors won't talk to them anymore. Or why nobody calls, or why nobody comes over, and why all these new people start tramping through their house and changing furniture around and doing all this kind of stuff. You know, and they're getting mad at that because in their space time, nothing
Mm-hmm.
has changed. They don't know they're dead. So all these trespassers are coming in. And then there's trespassers who come in with all this, you know, science fiction equipment, all these meters and, things that beep off and, uh, EVP machines and things of that nature and start addressing them like children,
Mm-hmm.
Hello, is there anybody here? It's like, what are you doing in my house? Get the hell out of my house, dude. It's, and that's the thing. And it's just, it's hard to imagine. And it's just like, when you do talk to dead people
Right.
for a living. Yeah, it's
Well, you know
something
what
I'm,
my money question is, Chip, because I work with kids a lot,
okay.
and
I love money questions, brother.
yep, the hardest thing for me is a child that doesn't know they're dead, and they come to me and they'll say, "Am I dead?" And I'll say, "Well, when was the last time you ate?"
Very good, brother.
Do they have an answer?
Well, whether they do or not, they come to me because they know they're safe with me.
Yeah.
And so when I ask them that question, then they come to their own realization that,
Okay.
oh,
Yeah, and I like that. And that is part of your essence and what you do. I think I look at you and I see life coach. I do. I just have forever, because you let people answer their own questions. You don't answer questions for them. You let them answer their own questions. See, I would have told them myself. I have before. Because they needed to know, but I tried to do it thinking as a 7-year-old would think, you know, or a loving, nurturing parent would tell a 7-year-old that their parents died. You know, there are ginger ways to do it
Mm-hmm.
that still keeps things magical. You know.
Right.
Now there's more things you can do. Now you can travel through time. Yeah, 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 yeah.
but again, I don't want to romanticize death because people have to Stay in this
Well,
class
we're talking
too.
about people that are dead, though.
No, but I'm saying when you say something like that, someone who's on the cusp and ready to give up, here they're, oh, well, I can travel through time. Hey, that's better than this. And now you're rationalizing a decision for them that would be a huge mistake.
Well, I
And so
wouldn't
I
say
always
that
want
to
to be
somebody
clear
who's
when people
dying, though.
romanticize
I
death
would say that to somebody who's dead. There is a big difference.
but the
But
people that are
at the
hearing this
same time, if
that
the,
aren't.
I mean, in hospices, there are things and methodologies they're using that they weren't 10 or 20 years ago. Uh, and I don't think there are many hospice workers that communicate with dead people who have told them that the time means nothing anymore to them because they're basically energy and they can. It's a consciousness energy that even science hasn't caught up with yet. That
Mhm.
was why we were talking last night, considering bringing a new show to the world called Kindness in Space Time, which is because theoretical physics and science and even faith to a certain extent and media, they're getting closer and closer to actually answering questions that we've been asking all of our lives, that
Mhm.
can explain away ghosts and spirits, that can explain away afterlife or reincarnation or extraterrestrials or unidentified aerial phenomena. Yeah, you know, um, without the military and the government taking over the dialogue first, you know. But it's also a different, just a different way to see things because we fear what we don't know or don't understand, and if you add understanding and knowledge, but from a harmless perspective, and from somebody who wasn't scared into the field, but was loved into the field. It just brings about a different way to look at things. That people can go, oh, okay, okay, yeah, and it takes some fear away because there's so much fear now in real life. I mean, real life is scarier than anything paranormal now. You know, and it's just that because even the way people talk about ghosts nowadays or UFOs, I mean, when Congress comes out and does a 2 hour thing, I don't think anybody tuned into it. you know it's like, well, whatever, or the New York Times did the first real disclosure. It was like in 2017, I think, in December, in 2017, if I remember correctly. Ask Andrea Pira knows. She knows the answer to that one. But something else happened on that day that everybody was talking about. And
Right.
it didn't even make it. It's like everybody shrugging their shoulder. Okay, so there's 8 million galaxies. Yeah, yeah, life somewhere else. Okay, sure. Okay, that makes sense, really. I mean, even mathematically, it makes sense. But it comes at a time when nobody cares. So why now? You know, I mean, and why is it their dialogue? Maybe because Congress, if some spaceman comes and says, "Take me to your leader," we'll be encouraged to take him to a congressman.
Well, Chip, you know what the opposite of Congress, Chip?
I don't.
Progress. But
Very, very true.
let's talk about the real important change that's coming. You're going to actually go out there and do a show. No, I mean you're going to a convention, correct?
Yeah, well, yeah, we're still in the process of making that happen. It's actually somebody that you all know, who's local here. See, yeah, I never really fully answered your initial question about what got me started in this whole thing, and yeah,
Okay,
that
but
was
it's only an hour show, Chip.
I
So I'm
know.
I'm trying to cut my losses.
Okay, it's that was John Tobin. He's local, but
Right?
there were other paranormal teams locally that were ultra competitive,
Right.
and their way was the only way, and it was very frictional.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's
I
that's why
never
people
really
talk about
came out.
paranormal unity.
I never really, well, I came out
Ah,
for that. John was the one who got me into radio. I was his co-host, and
Okay.
I did these introductions called chipisms, and they were, things, special things about the guest or some of the parts of the paranormal where there is love and kindness and blah blah blah.
Right.
So psychically, I haven't come out for much the same reason. It's kind of competitive here. So
Mm-hmm.
here's a guy basically down the street from me,
Mm-hmm.
who doesn't know me from Adam. So he doesn't know if he's getting somebody who can talk the talk but can't walk the walk. He
Right.
doesn't know who I am at all. So I encouraged him, of course, to watch Glenda's Dragons. So Tony, if you're watching,
but tell
uh,
us about the show that you're
well, they want to do psychic fairs locally in our area where I live. It's the Capital District of New York State, so it's
right.
Albany, Schenectady, Troy, and do psychic fairs and events and have a potential to do a presentation for half an hour
And how's that
on
feel?
top of that. That feels phenomenal, you
Mm-hmm.
know, especially, weeks after really getting that mojo going, because I went through a surgery and, the surgery was nothing compared to the normal pain that I live with. And I'm thinking, I got my chest cut open and I feel great. And so yeah, I can do this stuff. And so yeah, it'll give me the opportunity to go to psychic fairs
Mm-hmm.
locally and eventually, break out a little further
And
and
what's
do
the time frame for that?
tarot readings live. Ideally, less than a month.
Nice.
Yeah, maybe.
But we got to start promoting it now, Chip.
Yes, yes, indeed. So yeah, watch out for my Facebook page, Chip Reichenthal. Actually, it's facebook.com/victims
Actually,
of
there it is.
retail.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there it is. Yeah, yeah. Victims of retail. That was my old band name because we were all in retail at the time, and so
Uh,
we were all victims because we were bored off our ass, and the customers were all victims because, yeah, we would pounce on them as soon as they came in. So, yeah, everyone's a victim of retail. It's a collective, there's a kindness behind it. Just like
mhm.
even the dead won't tell you the truth, and kindness in space time and kindness beyond the veil, which I'm thinking about bringing back.
Oh yeah.
Um,
I've heard a lot of people saying they can't wait.
yeah, and I'm also I've got a website coming, chipthekindnessguy.com. It'll be around soon. I will
Okay.
be doing tarot readings for people from that website. I
Right.
will be doing past life regression hypnosis from that site. And I have a web course that I designed. It's a 20 course super masterclass in the paranormal realms.
Nice.
That's the paranormal, psychic ability, UAPs and extraterrestrials, interdimensional beings, angels, magic, alternative healing. I mean, it includes everything. And
Yeah.
we'll have certificates for graduates and want to design a web course. Um, unless I get picked up for that TV show that we do have a pilot that is being shopped to networks that has nothing to do with any of that. so uh, so a lot of things, but you know, it, it's like the same week I decide. Well, actually, my wife and I decide. It's probably better for my health if I, you know, return to some of the stuff that I felt is my purpose,
Right.
And 2 days later, Tony Guy Parker calls
Mm-hmm.
and says, we've been doing these things around Woodstock and Scotticoke area, and we want to come into the Capital District, and if you're interested, let me know. But put your money where your mouth is. I don't know who you are. I don't know if you're any good or not.
Right.
So he'll know though. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I stand behind my readings. I mean, I've made people cry before because I mean, it's so close to what their problems have been.
Mm-hmm.
They've been boxed in with, and it's like this release because I can show them points of strength they can't see that they can utilize to navigate themselves through whatever comes their way.
Right.
And it's not the boyfriend or the car or the job. It's why the boyfriend, why the car, why the job. Things like
Exactly.
that. So, and it's not scary. It's a soul nurturing, thing that's meant to be cathartic.
Mm-hmm.
And so is the past life regression hypnosis. It answers questions that you've had all your life
Mm-hmm.
within yourself that you never get answers to. Why am I so much harder on one sister than the other? Why do I give myself away to certain people? Why do I
Mm-hmm.
do this? Why do I do this? It answers those kind of questions, and you don't have to believe in past lives in order to get that kind of benefit.
Very
Um,
true.
of course, that'll be much more costly than the tarot readings,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it is a hypnotherapeutic event, and I should say that in within the past few years, I have seen an uptick. Uh, the people whose past lives uh, they were not human or of this planet.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen an uptick of that in the last 3 years or so, and I mean that's plain fascinating right there, and it helps explain things like star seeds and stuff.
Yeah.
So
And
there we go.
walk-ins and the indigos, why they're here,
Mm-hmm.
all that other.
Yep. Yeah. And it backs a lot of that stuff up too. So
Mm-hmm.
And with that, Chip, we are about out of time.
I thought we were getting
So,
close. Yeah.
is there anything you want to promote quick before we go?
Um, no, not really. Just be on the lookout for Chip Reichenthal because he's on his way back.
There you
Um,
go.
but yeah, Facebook or Twitter at
And
Victims of
there you
Retail,
just to
and
look for you on the Facebook. Most of our viewers have Facebook,
yep,
and
yep,
And if there's something that Chip can't do, Glenda can do it.
ah,
that's right. Yeah, and fantastically, by the way. You we credit her for saving our lives. We actually do.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you, Chip.
thank you.
And it's been great chatting with you.
Oh
Yes,
And
yeah, I love you both.
you
Thanks for
look
having me.
great. It's
You
good to
guys
see
do
you
too.
looking so well.
It's nice to be feeling so well, and I really do have you guys to thank for that. Thanks for having me on. Thanks for tuning in, my friends. Good to see you all.
All right, stick with
And
us when
stay
we
tuned.
sign off, and honey, take it home.
all right, everyone. This is the end. There's
No, this is
always,
the beginning.
as always,
This is the
there's
prelude.
no. There's an ending, but there's always a beginning.
There you go.
Thank you very much. We all love you. Have a great week. Safe, everyone.